Hello everyone, and once again, welcome to MakeTech. Today we are going to have a look at this cool little laser cutter here. This is the WeCreat Vision, and we're going to run it through some tests. We're going to have a quick look at what it can do. So without further ado, let's jump into this video. So the first thing you're going to notice about this machine that makes it different from most other diode lasers on the market is the fact that this machine is completely enclosed. Enclosing the machine allows you to do two major things. First, it allows the smoke all to be captured and then to be exhausted out the back via the provided exhaust hose. The hose can then be vented out a window so none of the smoke ever enters any of your work environment. The other thing the enclosure does is safely contain the laser beam so no eyeballs are accidentally getting burnt out. Now when you open up this machine, the first thing you're going to notice is it has this nice transparent top, so you can actually watch your project being lasered in real time. The other neat feature this machine has is this built-in high definition camera. This camera not only lets you see the workpiece within the WeCreat software, but it also lets you overlay and position whatever you would like to engrave or cut on the workpiece. This can be a huge time saver when you're lining up your designs. We'll check out this feature more later when we look at the software. And the other thing you'll notice is that it has these nice light strips built into the top. Now let's turn this machine around and let's have a look at the backside. Having a look at the backside here, we have the power and the input for the air assist. Next to it, we have the power switch. And next to that, we have the DC power in for the machine and the USB port. Then we have this exhaust port for the smoke that actually comes with this exhaust hose. And finally, we have the Wi-Fi antenna, which shows another great feature of this machine as you can connect to it wirelessly. Now having a look inside the WeCreat Vision, it has a work area of approximately 16.5 by 11.5. It also has the ability to fit items up to 5.5 inches in depth. It does this in a really unique way, and that's by expanding itself in height. It comes with this 20-watt laser module, which also has air assist and autofocus built into it. The bed of this laser has this knife rack, which can easily be removed just like so. This allows you to have more working depth within the laser. The tray here at the bottom of the laser actually slides out, which is a great feature to make it easy to clean. Now let's have a quick look of what's included with this machine. When I opened the box, one of the things I was pleasantly surprised about was the fact that this machine included everything to get you going. It comes with this quick start user manual, these benchmark tests from your machine. They also include 2 pieces of plywood, which lets you get working on a project straight away. They include the rotary attachment and the support for the rotary attachment. And they also give you all these little adapters, which lets you fit all sorts of cylinders to the rotary attachment. You're also given all the tools for your machine, including the tools needed to mount your rotary attachment. You're even given some grease for the machine maintenance. And finally, you get an air pump for the machine's air assist. So let's now have a look at the WeCreat software app. My first impressions of this app was that it was rather simplistic, but after digging into the app a bit, I've actually found that it's full of features, including some features that are found on more pro-level software. When you enter the software, the first thing you want to do is hit the refresh button. This will load an image of whatever material you have loaded into the WeCreat laser cutter. In my case here, I just have a piece of birch plywood on the laser bed. It has the typical drawing tools found in most design software. First off, you have a line tool. There is also a rectangle tool and a circle tool available. Another great feature down here at the bottom right is you can change the color of each one of your objects. This not only allows you to contrast with your work surface, but also lets you organize your designs better. Going back to your left here, there is also a text tool. This text tool has all the basic features that you would expect from a text tool, including the ability to change your font, the font size, adjustments for kerning, and for line spacing. You can also curve your fonts and weld them if needed. Next, we have an image database where you can pre-select images from their large library of black and white vector images. When you find an image you want to use, you can simply select it and drag it over to your canvas, just like so. There is also an AI image generator tool that's built in, so you can generate images based on whatever prompt you give it. There is also a pen tool that lets you create shapes based on where you place the nodes. You also have this jigsaw tool, which lets you create a jigsaw puzzle. Within the tool itself, it has these options here, so you can configure the jigsaw the way you want it. You can also upload your own images, both in raster and vector formats. I'm just going to upload this raptor skeleton here, just to show you how it works. Once you upload an image, you'll see that you'll now have some options available for editing it. You'll have an edit image button, which allows you to crop and erase parts of the image if needed. You'll also have the ability to add some basic filters, like inverting the image. You also have controls to adjust both sharpness and grayscale. There's also a sketch button here, which lets you trace draw the image. This allows you to easily and quickly turn your raster image into a vector image. There is also an array feature here. This feature basically allows you to create multiple copies of any object you want. Within the array tool, there's also this neat little option that lets you create material testing arrays. This lets you create a matrix of different powers and speeds, so you can quickly test what power and speed works best on whatever material you're now using. Next, we have a contour option. This allows you to quickly and easily draw outlines of objects. This comes in really handy when you're looking to cut out your designs. There's also tools to help you both easily align and merge objects together. There's also numeral controls here, so you can precisely place and scale objects. Next to those, you have options for both rotating and mirroring your objects. Over here in the right hand corner, you have an option to change from laser flat mode to laser cylindrical mode. The laser cylindrical mode is for using the rotary attachment. Another great feature this software has is what they call Quick View Matrix. This allows you to select a material type, and a material thickness, after which you'll be provided with this image here where you can quickly select a power and speed for the material you want to engrave. This now brings us to this tabbed area over here on the left, which lets you control things like the power, the speed, the line density, and the number of passes your laser is going to do. At the bottom right here, you have a layers area where you can select the individual components on your canvas. At the bottom left here, you have this canvas area, which lets you create multiple canvases within a file. This is actually a great feature if you need to organize different parts of a large project. The last control we're going to look at is this autofocus feature, which allows you to autofocus the laser lens based on the material that you have loaded into the WeCreat laser cutter. The last part of the software we're going to look at is this Discover tab. In this tab, you have a whole bunch of pre-made projects specifically made for the WeCreat Vision. All you need to do is select one of the projects, and WeCreat will load this project onto the artboard for you. Once the project is loaded, all the feeds and speeds are already set for you, so you can just start cutting it. So that's my breakdown of the software. Let's now move on to testing the machine. Here we have a selection of different materials used in laser projects that we're going to test the WeCreat Vision on and see how it does. Up here we have some different types and thicknesses of wood that we'll be testing both the engraving and the cutting of. We'll then test engraving on some flat rocks and on some painted tile. We also have some leatherette we'll be working on. We'll then move on to testing the metal etching abilities, after which we'll move on to testing the rotary attachment with both glass and one of these Stanley style tumblers. The first test we're going to do with the WeCreat is to test its ability to engrave on wood. For this test, I'll be using some 1/4 inch Baltic birch plywood, and I'll be comparing it to some tests I did in a previous video with my CO2 laser engraver. For my test, I'll be using this high contrast grayscale image of Lemmy here. For settings, I'll have my power set at 80, my speed set to 200, and my line density to 125. I will also have the image logarithm setting set to gray. So here's the result. The WeCreat engraved at a slightly different color than the CO2 laser engraver, which I assume is due to the different spectrums of light. Detail and resolution wise, I would say it's about comparable to the stock lens my CO2 laser engraver came with, and slightly less detail than using an aftermarket compound lens attachment on the CO2 laser engraver. For me, these engraving results are more than acceptable. Next, we're going to move on to cutting some different thicknesses of wood. We'll start with some 1/8 Baltic birch plywood. We'll then go to a 1/4 inch Baltic birch plywood, and then a 3/8 Baltic birch plywood. We'll then finish it off by trying to cut some 5/8 thick pine board. Here we have the 1/8 Baltic birch plywood set up. For all these tests, I'll be cutting both a square and a circle, both of which will be 40 millimeters across. For this 1/8 plywood, I'll be cutting it at a power of 100, a speed of 7, and I'll be doing only one pass. Here we now have the 1/4 inch Baltic birch plywood. The settings I'll be cutting this at is a power of 100, a speed of 4, and I'll be doing one pass. Next up, we have the 3/8 Baltic birch plywood. The settings I'll be cutting this at is a power of 100, a speed of 3, and I'll be doing two passes. And last, we'll be cutting this 5/8 thick pine board. Here, I'll be using a power of 100, a speed of 4, and I'll be doing 3 passes. So here we have the cutting results. The WeCreat Vision had no problem cutting through the 1/8 Baltic birch plywood. It also had no issue cutting its way through the 1/4 inch plywood. With the 3/8 plywood, it did leave a bit of charring on the bottom side, but it did make it through. The 5/8 pine board had the same charring happening on the bottom as did the 3/8 Baltic birch plywood. Now, most people, including me, rarely use materials that are thicker than 1/4 inch in their laser machines. Typically, when you get past 1/4 inch, that's usually when you want to kind of move up to a CNC machine instead. So just know, if you are planning to work with thicker materials, you'll probably want to find some way to work around the charring on the bottom, either by adding some sort of tape or by sanding it off. The next item we're going to test engraving is stone. Now, I'm not quite sure what kind of stone this is, but I find that it engraves very similar to slate. On this stone, we're going to engrave an image of a raptor fossil. The settings I'll be using to do this is a power of 100, a speed of 200, and I'll be doing it at a line detail of 130. After engraving the stone, I went ahead and I cleaned it up by simply using a brush and some soap and water. As you can see, the detail came out quite well. So much so that I went and did another test of this piranha skeleton on another piece of stone, and it also turned out very nicely. So when it comes to stone, the WeCreat Vision has very comparable results to my CO2 laser engraver. Next up, we are going to do some tests on some painted tiles. Now, I picked up these tiles from Home Depot already pre-painted, but you can of course paint your own tiles. On these tiles, I'll be engraving a picture of this tiger. This image will be overlapping the tile. To help line this image up, I'm going to go over here and check Ignore for processing. This will make the image semi-transparent, helping you line it up on the tile. Once I got it lined up, I'll go ahead and unclick Ignore for processing. Now, because these tiles are painted dark on top, but actually light underneath, what I'll want to do is apply the invert filter to the image. This will invert the light and dark colors, letting you laser off the dark paint in the parts of the image that need to be light. For settings here, I'll be using a power of 100, a speed of 150, and a line density of 120. I'll also have the image logarithm set to Jarvis. After engraving, I simply wipe this off with some Windex to get rid of any soot. As you can see, the end result's pretty good, with the image engraving with lots of detail. These results are also quite comparable to what I've gotten from other professional machines. Now let's move on to engraving and cutting some leatherette. This leatherette is not leather. It is actually a manufactured product that's meant to simulate leather. And this particular leatherette is actually specifically made for laser cutters. For this test, I am going to take this scrap piece of leatherette I have. I'm first going to engrave my logo into it, and then I'm going to cut it out as a patch. For the engraving, I'll have the power set to 20, the speed set to 100, and the line density set to 100. For the cut, I'll have the power set to 100 and the speed set to 15. After the engraving was done, I took the piece of leatherette and I wiped it off with some Windex, just to clean off any soot marks left behind by the laser. As you can see, this patch turned out quite well, and the WeCreat seemed to have no issues working with this leatherette. Now moving on, we're going to test etching the steel blade of this steak knife. Anytime you want to mark metal with a regular laser, you're going to need some sort of laser spray. The most affordable option is a lubricant called dry moly, but you can also get specialty products specifically made for marking metals with laser, like this Surmark product. For this video, I'll be using the dry moly. In the past, I also did do a whole video on etching metals with these different sprays, so if you'd like to know more, I'll link that video below in the description. Now, as you can see, I've gone ahead and taped off the handle of the knife. I've then sprayed the whole knife in that moly lubricant and let it dry. I'm now going to go ahead and overlay this pattern I want engraved onto the blade. The settings I'm going to use for engraving this pattern onto the blade is a power of 100, a speed of 25, and I'm going to use a line density of 100. After the knife was done engraving, I went and washed the rest of the dry moly off with some soap and water. As you can see, the laser did indeed etch the pattern onto the blade. This etching is about the same darkness as I've gotten from other laser engravers using the dry moly. Now, if you want your markings to be darker, you can use one of these marking sprays, as I've found them to produce darker results on most metals compared to the dry moly. The only thing to note is that these marking sprays are usually considerably more expensive than the dry moly. Next up, we are going to test etching glass with the rotary attachment. Now, to etch glass with any sort of diode laser, you are going to have to coat it with something in order for the glass to etch. This is because the laser will just pass through the glass if it doesn't have some sort of coating. For this coating, you can use most types of black paint, but what I prefer to use is either this black spray chalk or this brush-on tempera paint. This is because both of these paints are washable and easily clean off with soap and water. Now I've went ahead and coated the glass with the chalk spray and let it dry. I then installed the rotary attachment into the laser. This is a simple matter of attaching it with 2 bolts and then plugging the control table into the back of the machine. Once the rotary is installed, I tighten the base of the glass into the chuck of the machine. I then use the included support to support the body of the glass. In the software, I changed over to cylindrical mode, which gives you this sideways layout. Now, when you're working with the rotary, you do have to measure either the perimeter or the diameter of the object you want engraved. Over here on the right hand side, you can enter either number, and you can then go ahead and hit preview to get a preview of the engraving. For the settings, I'll be using a power of 55, a speed of 110, and a line density of 100. After the glass was done engraving, I washed off the remaining paint with some dish soap and warm water, and here's the finished result. For me, the laser, in conjunction with the rotary attachment, did an absolutely excellent job at engraving this glass. Finally, let's move on to engraving this large Stanley style tumbler. With these tumblers, we'll simply be lasering off the paint
to expose the stainless steel beneath the paint. To make these tumblers easier to engrave, you'll want to remove the handle. This is simply done by removing these two screws. As you can see, I've gone ahead and removed the handle off the Stanley Tumbler. I've also overlaid my graphic onto the tumbler where I'd like it engraved, and I've set my diameter to 100 millimeters. I then went ahead and checked the preview to make sure everything is sitting where I'd like it to be. For the settings, I'll be using a power of 50, a speed of 100, and a line density of 100. After the tumbler was done engraving, I went and washed off the remaining residue with some dish soap and some water, and here's the result. Once again, I found that the WeCreat Vision did a good job of handling this project.
So after having ran this machine through its paces, here's my thoughts. This machine is an excellent choice for beginners. Having owned both multiple diode lasers before and CO2 lasers before, this machine has been by far the easiest to set up, but also to get operating. So if you're entering the market and you're looking around at your first laser, this is an excellent choice. It's also a great choice if you're looking to upgrade your old open frame diode laser, or even to upgrade an old CO2 laser, something smaller like a K40. This would be a great choice to upgrade to. So that's it for this video, guys. If you have any questions, please make sure to leave them in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please make sure to do so. And please leave me a like if you've liked this video. Alright, we'll see you all again next time.